I was so scared to go to Johnny Cash's house. Like, I never wanted to go again, you know. You do it here all the time in the same place?
Not all the time. Sometimes I go to...
It's like the last one I watched, there was some like big white chair or something somebody was sitting, and I was like noticing, I was like, I wonder if I'm going to the same place or what the deal is. Do you just find a studio?
I do a lot here when it's people from out of town, but like when we did Jamie, we did that at the Cash Cabin.
Yeah, and he likes to hang out there a lot.
Yeah, and William Lee Golden was the last one we did.
That was the one I watched.
Yeah, we just went to his house.
You know what's funny is, like, I had a different memory of the Beard story. I'm sorry, I know we're already talking. I shouldn't be like fucking rolling with this shit, but it's because I watched that, and I was in the room with Jamie Johnson and the Oak Ridge Boys when I was working on my third record, The Wolf, and they sang on this song Slow Train. The Oak Ridge Boys did.
Yeah.
And Jamie, that was when I don't know, I could be wrong about this, but I believe that was the first time we ever met them. And it was the first time I met them, and we were all hanging together. And William Lee Golden told the story. I think Jamie asked like about the beard or something, and from what I remembered, he said that this is what God intended me to look like. And I saw the light in Jamie's eyes go. And after that point, he never because he looked like you when we were having this conversation. And after that point, he never cut his hair again.
Wow. Well, there's the story behind Jamie's beard.
Yeah, there you go. It's because of William Lee Golden. It's infectious.
Yeah.
Can you imagine if I had a beard like that, as short as I am, what I would look like? I'd be like a little mountain troll or something.
All right, we're in here with Shooter Jennings. Shooter, I'm so glad to have you in here.
I'm so glad to be here.
Been really looking forward to this for quite some time since I saw you in L.A. and we talked about it. I've been just really looking forward to it, so thank you for coming in and doing it.
Hey, I have too, man. Thank you. I've been a fan of yours for a while, and it was nice. You've been real helpful with this whole Songbird thing, so I really appreciate it. I was happy to come here.
Yeah, I'm glad that you guys involved me in being able to come in and listen in L.A. That was a really cool experience for me. My first time in L.A., so that was really neat.
What'd you think about it?
Oh, it was, honestly, I was a little bit nervous going in because I was like, how are these L.A. folks going to take a fellow like me, But it was great. I was a little bit nervous, too, because at the time the news was acting like it was a war zone out there. And,
I know. That was like everyone was at, should we come? I go, man, I don't know what's happening downtown, but it caused a little traffic on Saturday, but that was about it. But they made it sound like people were calling us, asking if we were okay and all this. And we're like, I think so. Or here. I don't know.
Yeah, people were calling me, checking on me, and I was like, I don't see anything happening. It's pretty quiet, actually, surprisingly. But no, it was great, and I was happy to be involved. The craziest thing was, what was it, a week or two before, one of the songs had gotten leaked.
Oh, yeah.
And somebody sent it to me, and I was like, I got to get this to shoot.
Yeah, you were the guy who let us know. I remember waking up to a message from Adam that you had reached out about it. Yeah, I know who did that too. It was my mistake though, because I posted the thing unlisted because I wanted Greg to see it. I wanted you to see it to make sure that your editor was cool with it. And so I posted it as like an unlisted video instead of a private with a password video. And then like this fucking dude that we all love went and figured that out somehow and posted it, and it was up there for about a day. But whatever. It was actually funny because it kind of got people talking.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Well, we have a whole lot to talk about. Obviously, we want to get some good Waylon stories in and some good Jessi stories in and talk about the incredible career that you've had.
Thanks.
But you've seen how I do things. I kind of like to start from the beginning. So what was it like, just growing up as country music royalty, the son of Waylon Jennings and Jessi Colter?
Man, it's I grew up here in Nashville, and my parents, like, I'm lucky I was like late in his life because he had kind of figured some things out and gone through a lot by the time I came around, right? So I got to the kind of kinder, gentler Waylon, I guess you could say. I would not say kinder, but you know what I mean. He was older, so he was able to kind of focus on being a dad a lot, and he was a great dad. So I had a great relationship with him. I didn't really understand. You know, it's weird because like I traveled on the road from the time I was born, because you know when I was out, we'd go out on the road until I started school. You know,
right.
So it was just kind of the norm in a way. You know, but then like once I started schools, when you start to realize, okay, like our life is a little different. And you know, it was weird. Like I didn't even have a concept in Nashville at that time. There was kind of like a old money kind of contingent, which I didn't even know what that meant. Right. Mm. But like we were kind of viewed as new money in that scenario, like in the way like the Belmead families here were like, so in school, like there were parents that were like talking about like, you know, whether it be like my dad's old partying ways or whatever else. I'm unaware of all of it. I'm completely like ignorant, you know, and blissful. Yeah. But like when you know, they worried about that. They worried about me hearing about him doing drugs in the 70s and everything. You know, he quit all that when I was like 5, but I had no idea about any of it. And he tried to tell me it one time, a couple times, and he couldn't really do it. But he finally kind of did. But I think he thought I would, you know, be bummed out or something, and I just didn't even faze me. But like growing up, you know, you kind of like you have to figure it out from the inside out what's going on in a way. Like I used to hate that we couldn't go to the mall without him getting bothered. I used to say like, you know, like, can't you just tell him that you're his cousin or something, or that you're not him, you know? So you kind of figure it out, you know. I remember one of the first times I like went over to, there's a kid in my school named Cliff, and I went over to his house, and his dad was a doctor, and my dad came to pick me up from his house after he hung out, and he goes, "Oh, nice to meet you, Dr. Jennings," you know, because he thought like everybody's dad was a doctor, you know. And my dad thought that was so funny, but that was kind of the way it was, you know. I kind of had to figure out that the music business wasn't everybody's thing, but living in Nashville, it was a lot of people. There was a lot of people in the music business, you know. But I don't know if I have a good answer for what it was like. I can just say like, you know, I don't know. It was cool. My dad was awesome, and we had a great relationship. Like a lot of people in music whose parents, they don't have a great relationship for whatever reason, but I did. So I had a really great childhood. Like I kind of relish and live in my childhood. That's why the Skeletor shit is all over my studio, you know, because I was a lucky kid. I had a good childhood.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, you talked about his drug use and how he quit when you were young. Wasn't it kind of because, isn't it a story of you were coloring in a coloring book and he was just, that was kind of a moment for him where
in his book, he talked about that. I don't remember that because I was like 1 or 2, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess like he hadn't been able to like sit still for a long time. And I was sitting there kind of holding him, and he was like realizing that it was hard for him to relax, you know. But yeah, I mean, again, like I think it affected him so much more. Like he was so afraid that it was that part of his life was going to negatively impact me, that he was like, he like kind of self-determined to quit, and like all unbeknownst to me, you know what I mean? So all that stuff was kind of a story I heard about after the fact, but I, you know, never ever had any kind of a negative impression of his drug use. I didn't know what happened, you know. It wasn't like he was like rolling around doing lines in the morning during breakfast or something, you know?
Right.
But they can make it seem that way.
Yeah. Well, I was heading over here, and I had some Waylon playing, of course, because I always do. And one of my favorite songs came on, "Old Friend."
Oh man, that's a great tune off "Are You Ready for the Country?"
Yep.
Yeah.
And it occurred to me to ask you if Waylon had ever, you know, talked about Buddy.
Oh yeah, man, all the time. Like all the time.
Really?
Yes. I mean, he brought him up all the time. I mean, I think that was the most, you know, not the actual death part. I think that's a whole other thing, you know. But the buddies, mentorship during that period. I think was kind of his most impactful friendship and relationship in a way in his life, because he was a DJ and Buddy would hang out at the radio station, from what I understand. That's kind of how they got to meet,
Yeah.
and then he kind of showed him the ropes of like the music business and took him to New York for the first time. Also, so yeah, but Buddy was huge, and I think I think my dad making music, I think he always felt like he was trying to do something that they had started in a way, like Buddy and him. There was a drive there, Like imagine, I was talking. There's a writer that I don't know what'll ever happen, but there's a writer that I know who's so good. We talked about doing, hopefully some kind of a series or something about my dad's life. We were talking. And this guy was like, man, he's like, imagine being part of something, and then this awful day happens and all these people die, and they call it the day the music died, and you're still alive. The feeling of like him kind of feeling like he was the dead man walking after that point, like that he maybe shouldn't have been alive, or survivor's guilt or whatever. But like, I imagine, like, I think that drove him a lot. And I think his moral compass was aligned because of that, in a way where he was going to always do the right thing, no matter if it caused a problem or not. He was going to fight for it in a way because he survived that.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I've always found that incredible, because that couldn't have been very long, just a few years probably, that they knew each other, but he had such an impact that, and I was thinking that, listening to that song, because that was a song that came, later in his career.
Yeah.
Just all those years later, he's
still talking about it. Yeah, he was all the way to the end, yeah, I think when somebody cares about music so much. I mean, my dad cared about music so much that I think he felt I know he felt a personal responsibility for it, and in that sense, I think he looked at it like a collective art, as opposed to like I'm a genius at what I do. I think in a way he looked at it like it was something that we all shared, and that to me was it's a different type of person. And with Buddy, I mean, it was just, the impact, like Buddy, all the stuff Buddy would tell him, always leave the audience wanting more. Don't play too long of a show. Cause like that, or like he'd be like, just say you're pop, because if you're pop, you can be country, you can be blues, you can be whatever, you got wiggle room. Like he would give him all this advice, and he would still he lived by that advice. It was like, if you're not first, you're last. It's like in that movie when I lived my whole life by that, but it was like that in a way. I think that friendship and those relationships, like in that relationship, kind of defined him.
Yeah, yeah. Well, when you were a pretty young kid, the Highwaymen formed, and obviously you were around a lot of legends. What was that like? Just being around those guys.
Man, that was cool. Like I look back at my life and I go, man, that I was, 5 when the first one happened. So we were out on the road with all them. And I barely remember that. But I do remember we went to Germany and we went to the Berlin Wall and looked at it. And I remember this woman that worked for my dad named Mary Lou Hyatt looked over it, like went up and looked over it, and there was just guns pointed at her, like on the other side, and I remember going there, and I remember the dog being scared because all these dogs came on our bus, like when we went to into where that was, and I was so little I didn't know what was going on, maybe I was 4 or 5, but and then the second time around we went to Australia. I remember that, and I had like my 13th birthday over there, or actually we looked at I did an interview. It was in '91, so it must have been my 12th birthday. So I just did an interview with Australia about this, and they told me the Highwaymen came in '91 and '95, so it would have been the first time. And I remember that was awesome because like the Christophersons, they had 5 kids and they were all out there, and I was out there, and we went to Australia and we went to New Zealand and all this, and that was so cool. So it was really cool to be around all them. And Willie and my dad were touring before that. And I got to be really close with Amy and Paula Nelson, right? Like I grew up with them, and Amy and I have been like really close our whole lives. We've stayed really close and in touch and everything. So being around all their families was awesome, and they were all such great people, such nice people. All Cash, Chris, everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's incredible.
Have you seen the writer that's on the internet where there's the writer for their backstage? Because the other day I was like looking, there was like a Frank Sinatra writer that was on the internet, like for their backstage, like drinks and food and everything.
Right.
And the Frank Sinatra one was like insane. It was like this long and it had like all kinds of things, and the Highwaymen was like the most, it was all four of them. It was like 2 Diet Cokes, 2 regular Cokes, 1 coffee and some waters. It was like all like the most minimal things in the dressing rooms for those guys, when all these other dudes had these exorbitant, they had people cooking stuff for them, and they were just kind of like, didn't care. Willie'd be like, oh, he's got 3 Diet Cokes. I'll take 3 then. I'll take 4.
Well, there's so many, legendary stories about your dad, and I've told them. I'm sure you've seen me tell them on the internet, and people just absolutely dig those stories. But I want to ask you, he was your dad. What's your favorite Waylon Jennings story?
Gosh, that's no one's ever asked me that. I don't know. I don't know what my favorite Waylon Jennings story would be. I mean, I had so many stories of my own when I was a kid that were great. Experiences with him. Because it's not like I looked at him like he was a legend.
Right.
He was my dad. And then there were days that he wore. My buddy, my old friend Matt Reeser used to say that when he was wearing his blue striped pajamas, he was in a bad mood. Like, so stay away from him, because like we'd be coming in and out the back door, and that's where like basically there was a living room or a kind of a den or whatever in our house that was the TV room, and that's kind of like where he hung out, and there was a door that went outside, and there, like we had a pool there, and there was a pool house, and I had taken over that pool house, and that had become my studio. So when I was like 16, 17, I had built this like home studio with my dad that was with the intention of being able to record his stuff. Like he helped me, he bought a bunch of studio stuff for me under the guise of, I'm going to learn how to use it all, and I'll be able to help him make demos and stuff, which we didn't really do that much of. I just fucked around in there forever. But so like I would always be coming in and out of that door where he's watching TV, and he wasn't never mean or nothing. But like if he was in, he'd be grumpy some days. And my buddy Matt, would come in and slam the door or something, and he'd say something, and he'd be like, he's wearing the blue pajamas, what I mean? But he was an incredibly kind dad. He was very, very, never ever like, I don't know. We never ever got in a fight, like we never argued. There was one time in 9th grade when he told me he didn't think I was putting enough effort into something at school. That was like the only time, you know what I mean? And we'd both like get our feelings hurt and pout, and then it'd be over, but I just had, it's weird. It's like he was able to really be a good parent to me, in that time. So I really, all the stories are good to me. I mean, we did these Halloween parties, and he would like dress up, or he'd like, or read a story or tell some story or ghost story or something, all that kind of stuff. And it would be just hilarious and fun. And he was, there was really no way to put it better than he was just a good dad,
Yeah.
Sorry, I get a.
Oh, you're fine.
It happens. Anyway.
Yeah. That it is incredible to hear that, because like you said, that's not always the case that you hear from children of.
Yeah. A lot of them, didn't know their dads that well.
Yeah.
So it was like, we had a really good situation. Our whole family was like that, like if you talk to, I don't know if you met Struggle when you were over there, but like, he grew up like my brother. I mean, really, because my sister had him when she was pretty young, and so he lived with us a little bit, and then he had a place, but we would hang out all the time. But he can attest to like what our Thanksgivings were like. It was like all of the kids would be there. There was a good period of time where where like all my brothers and sisters lived in Nashville. Like they were from, Terry, my brother Terry, Buddy, Julie, Dina, all grew up in Texas. And my sister Jennifer was from my mom's marriage to Dwayne Eddy, which like they lived in LA and then they lived in Nashville, Arizona. So, but there was a good period of time there where the whole family all lived in Nashville, and everybody was talking to each other, how hillbilly families can be. And so, and they had all their kids, so we had some really wonderful family Christmases and Halloweens and Thanksgivings and things like that. And it was always me and Way and Struggle and Way's brother Johnny and our nephew, my other nephew, who unfortunately passed away, Taylor. And we were kind of like the kids at the thing and would run around, and we had this great family. So he'll tell you that. You should have him on sometime. He's a good story.
Oh yeah,
good storyteller.
I'd love to. We're talking about Waylon stories. I have some good ones, and one that I would like to ask you about is Nipper the dog. Do you remember growing up and having Nipper the dog in the house? Because as I understand,
there's a big old plastic Nipper that was in our house. Yeah. That's so funny. I haven't even thought about that. Where did you get that from?
Well, from what I understand, I've told the story before, but he was in RCA and nobody was in the
he stole that
reception.
Thing? I think I remember that story. I forgot all about that. Because that thing was in the storage room with all the tapes. Like where he used to keep all his reels of tape. But I think I remember he just stole it out of the office or something, I think.
Yeah, he nobody was in the reception area from what I understand, and he just picked it up and walked out with it. And it just had it forever.
Yeah, and I think there was like a really small amount of those things, those big plastic nippers, and because I remember somebody telling me many years ago that they had one, and they had only made X amount of them. I forgot about that. I forgot about the nipper altogether, but cool.
Well,
what else you remember about my childhood?
Well, are you familiar with Johnny Cash's place out in Bon Aqua? Your dad went there from time to time.
Wait, where's that? Is that Jamaica?
No, Bon Aqua. It's about 40 miles.
Bon Aqua? I hear is that a part of? Is that Hendersonville? Is that? I'll tell you what I remember about Johnny Cash is that he had a house that we went to a bunch. I met Davy Jones there from the Monkees. I remember one night we walked in there and Davy Jones was in there, and he and I used to watch the Monkees all the time. And my dad was like, "Hey." Like we were going there to meet Davy Jones, and to me, I was like meeting like one of the biggest stars in the whole world because I watched that show all the time on Nickelodeon or Nick Night or whatever. So, like, but I don't know where that was. I have no idea geographically if that's the house you're talking about. So, what are you getting at? There's a story you're leading towards, and then it'll maybe put this together.
He had the house in Hendersonville, but he also had a property. So, just to back it up, Johnny had a corrupt, I think it was a accountant that was buying up a bunch of properties in Johnny's name without him knowing about it back in, I guess, the 70s. And when Johnny found out about it, he visited all the properties and sold most of them, but he went to the one out in Bon Aqua, which is outside of Dixon, about 40 miles west of Nashville. And it's an old cabin that was built in 1847 on 100-and-something acres. Beautiful place. But Johnny really liked that place, and there's pictures of your dad there with him.
I see.
But
I don't think I went to that place. I think the place I went to a bunch was Hendersonville. Can I tell you a quick story? I don't
yeah,
remember
absolutely.
But I'm just gonna. This is for John Carter, if he ever hears this, who I love very much, and his new album is fucking really great. That's coming out. But he, Jody White too. Love Jody, but these guys used to like to scare me a lot when I was little because I was just little younger, And they had it was weird. Like the Cash's house was really big. I remember. I mean, I was little, so it probably wasn't as big as my memory. But he had like these statues. There was like a in his house. There was like a bench with like a person sitting on it. There was like a statue. Like and there was a few of them throughout the house. And John Carter told me that they were dead people that they had poured like wax over or whatever and melted into there. And I was so scared to go to Johnny Cash's house. Like I never wanted to go again. I remember in Jody White, I would go over to Tony Joe's house, and man, he like I don't know if it was just my luck or if it was on purpose, but I would like walk into their TV room and it would be like the scene in Poltergeist 2 where that guy like where Craig T. Nelson drinks the worm and pukes up that weird monster that crawls across the thing. I had never seen it. I'm like 3 years old, dude. And I walk in the room and it's like that scene. And another time I went over to Tony Joe's house and Jody was watching there was a movie called Deadly Friends, I think. And the woman who played the throw mama from the train and from Goonies that played the mom in that. There's a scene where one of these guys, they have like these chips in their head and they throw a basketball at her head and her head explodes all over the wall. And I was like 4 and I walk in and it's like that scene was on. And man, I like never been so scared in my life. You know, between Jody and John Carter. Maybe that's why I'm just like the dark side all day long and shit. Maybe that's why. You know. Oh God.
That's funny.
I love that though. But John Carter's a wonderful dude and you know.
Yeah, I met John for the first time just a few weeks ago. They did a memorial for Johnny Rodriguez. And
yes, I know. I couldn't make it, but I heard about it.
Yeah, they played a video of you
because I did the Cowboy because that was coming out and hadn't come out yet, and I was like, "Well, play this thing," you know. Aubrey's really sweet. I actually met her last night for the first time.
Yeah, it was great, but that's the first time I didn't get to meet him. He wasn't out at the Cash Cabin when we did Jamie's, but hopefully we'll have John on pretty soon, and I'll bring that story up to him.
Yeah. You can also ask him about the Jamaica debacle too, because there was like this. We went to Jamaica one time when I was like I'm maybe 4, right, really little, and we stayed at Cash's house. And I actually got bit by a mosquito and that left like a permanent mark, which I still have. But
oh wow!
But like we were at his house and they were giving us a tour of the property with John Carter, and they had all these golf carts, right? And there was this one part where they had this really huge hill. It was like and so they drove the golf cart down the hill like really fast, and I thought that was awesome, right? So fast forward later, like a day or so, and we're just kind of hanging out, and I see John Carter pulls up in one of those golf carts. And so I go and I run and I hop on the golf cart because I think he's going to go do that hill again.
Mm-hmm.
Man, he drives into town in Jamaica with me, and they don't know where I'm at. So my parents, they were all looking for me, had no idea. I was gone for like a few hours, you know, and of course I got in trouble like when I got back, you know, but I remember, John Carter got me in a lot of trouble when I was little.
I love hearing the story about One-Eyed Jack out there in Jamaica. Are you familiar with that? There was this crocodile out there in Jamaica that was like terrorizing this community down there. It had one eye. It was this huge crocodile. And
it sounds like the bear from Great Outdoors.
Yeah. But it was eating people's pets and stuff. And so Johnny and Chance Martin and maybe 1 or 2 other guys go out on a boat and tracks down this crocodile and killed it. And there's actually a picture of Johnny standing next to this, hanging crocodile. And he made a song about it called One-Eyed Jack. Wow. You should check it out. But there's a few incredible stories from Jamaica, but I hadn't heard of the golf cart.
Yeah, me disappearing for a few hours. Well, I mean, I was stupid, but I just didn't think he was gonna leave, go into town, and that was wild.
Well, unfortunately, the Hendersonville house, Barry Gibb bought it
and burned it down.
T.G. Shepard is good friends with Barry, and they said they were doing some remodeling or something, and the wiring inside there was like
old or something.
One spot looked like extension cord.
Wow. Yeah, that's so funny. I mean, yeah, and it didn't. What's his name? The Gatlins had a song about that. They wrote a song about Johnny Cash the time Johnny Cash's house burned down or whatever. There's a song they wrote that's good.
Larry and them? Yeah,
that came out right after that. I think it's called The Night Johnny Cash's House Burned Down or something like that.
Huh. I hadn't heard that one.
Yeah. I mean, I shouldn't quote it. I haven't, but that's something like that.
Yeah. Well, back to the place in Bon Aqua, the reason that I brought it up is it's a museum now.
Is that the Johnny Cash Museum that I see like the little ads? Like, because I'm staying at a hotel here and they have all those little things for the Cooters and this and that. And there's like a Johnny Cash museum. And I was like, I wonder where that is.
That one is off of Broadway.
Oh. Okay.
And that's like the official Johnny Cash.
Like bar and stuff or something?
There's a bar next to it.
They're just giving away bars down there, aren't they? It seems
it's like an epidemic.
Yeah, I mean, it really is. What if you don't like any of these people? You know what I mean? Like, then you're kind of in hell down there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Sorry, I
no,
stopped the Bon Aqua.
No, it's all good. But anyway, the Nipper, they own the Nipper now.
Oh, now way to tie the room together, man.
Yeah. And so that's where I first saw, came in contact with the Nipper. I'd heard the story before. I'm not sure if your dad had wrote about it or not, but I'd heard of the story somewhere. But that was the first time I'd ever actually seen the Nipper dog. And I think they actually have it here. They have another spot here in Nashville now. Not too far from here. They have the Nipper there now. But
oh, cool.
The Nipper is still circulating around and people are hearing that story.
It's like the cocaine bear.
Yeah, the cocaine bear. I'm glad you brought that up. I wouldn't have even thought to have asked about that, but your dad had that, didn't he?
No, that is never true.
That wasn't true?
Those people made that up, or someone made that up and told those people that, and there was this, because it was the whole story about how he had this cocaine bear in this house that he had in Vegas. And I go, we didn't have a house in what are you talking about? Like, what is anyone talking about? And it was the weirdest thing because no matter what I said, like there's a kid at my son's school that's his age. He's 14 now, but this is like whenever this happened, he was about 12, like whenever that just became the news of the century. And this kid was arguing with my son at his school that Waylon did have the cocaine bear and that his dad knew. He's like, my dad knows he had the cocaine bear. And my son's like, my dad grew up. He was his dad. You know that, right? He was there, And so that was such a wild thing. And I think that little Kentucky for Kentucky place had that thing in there and had the story, whether they made it up or not, but they were using it for a touristy thing and somehow sold it for this movie. It was the wildest thing I've ever heard in my whole life. And then I guess they debunked the entire story because originally they found the actual cocaine bear. When they did, it was heavily decomposed because it had died in the middle of the woods and ate this cocaine or whatever. But that didn't keep a good story down, I guess. But it's pretty funny. I think they actually boiled down who did it, who came up with the story. There was some guy who was had something to do with a drug dealer or something. There was somebody who concocted this whole thing, but I can't remember. It's been a little while. But that was such a bizarre situation, and I just couldn't. My biggest beef is, or I guess the thing that bothers me the most is when people misrepresent my dad, because when somebody's dead a long time, it happens that way. People spread these stories and their kind of persona shifts over time, So when somebody tells some bullshit like that, everyone else why don't you just say yes? It would have been a lot it would have cool, But I was just I can't do that. I can't let them just say this shit and it not be true. We didn't have a house in Vegas. What is everybody talking about? It was the craziest thing ever, and to have a bunch of people push back was even crazier. So,
well, I remember when they came out with that movie, The Cocaine Bear, and that's whenever I saw that floating around.
That movie was hilarious, by the way. I don't know if you saw it.
No, I never saw it. But
oh man, there's a scene where these two little kids find all this cocaine, and this one kid has been talking. It's a girl and a boy, and this one kid's been lying his ass off, talking so much shit about how he's done cocaine before. So when they find this big thing of cocaine, this kid takes a knife and just eats it, right? And so the rest of the movie, this kid's going, my throat is so numb, and he's 10. I mean, it's the wildest movie, But yeah. Anyway, sorry. I took my kids to that movie, and we laughed the whole way through it, But,
well, I generally, when I'm doing a story, to me, just being factual is the most important thing, I never sensationalize things. But for some reason, when I saw that floating around, I never cross-referenced it or anything. I was just like, well, that probably checks out. I mean, it'd be cool to you hear this story. It'd be cool to have this stuff to bear. So that's just such a weird thing to make
was
up.
like the beginning of the funny thing about the story was like it was the same story that got passed around, which is that Waylon was a huge collector of taxidermy.
Yeah.
Right. We didn't have anything stuffed in our house. Like like I have like, again, what are you talking about? Like, it was just, you can just throw facts out and people will believe it. And it's like, yeah. So.
The closest thing y'all had was a plastic dog named Nipper.
That's right. That's right. We had a chandelier made out of antlers. That was as far as it went.
That's what. Well, it brings up a good point though, because I just made a video a few weeks ago about all this crazy stuff that's happening. And I'm sure you've seen it, of people using AI and stuff to create stories.
Oh yeah. Oh, you mean there's that specific group of accounts on Facebook?
Yes.
Is that what you're talking about?
Facebook and now YouTube, they're making videos with them.
Oh yeah. And it's always like the tragic story of Jessi Colter and how she's finally speaking out dude, it's kind of like weird gang stalking, because like there's one of the accounts where literally everyone has to do with me or my dad or my mom. It's like there's no one else. It's all AI. It's like they made a series for Netflix for $19 million. Like that pops up, and then there'll be this pops up and that pops, and it's just it's almost daily, and everybody go, how is this allowed? How is this allowed? That's what everybody says. Like, well, we know how it's allowed. It's the fucking internet. It's like all bullshit. But the reality is this new phase of these like almost pointless stories. Like they're like, oh, Jessi breaks her silence about, oh, what a great husband Waylon was, but it's all fake. And it's like these pictures. And like, I just like, at this point, I'm like, let them go wild. My mom gets real upset about it, because older people read it and think it's real, and then are like reaching out to her, but like everyone else knows what's going on, and it's just like, this is like a very strange thing that's happening. It's a weird. I don't know why it's like just us, and just like Alan Jackson has one where they just make Alan. I don't know why they're targeting just us with this one account. Like that's the thing that's kind of weird for me. Like if it was just like constant country music coming, that was just fake stories about Johnny Cash and fake stories about Willie, it's cool. But like this one account is like only Waylon, Jessi, and Shooter, and it's like 50 a day.
Yeah.
And so that makes me think like there's someone who's like, hey, do these people. And let it go wild. Like, I don't know how else to explain it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And it's disturbing. It really is, because a lot of them are twisted in a negative way, especially the ones on YouTube. They put these thumbnails and it's like you said, Jessi Colter breaks her silence about how Waylon Jennings really was.
Yeah. And that kind of stuff. And it's all like, and it has like the little AI voice. And
yeah. And it's
when my buddy, who was my best friend and manager, John Hensley died. This is the first time I ever saw anything like that. There was immediately this post that came out that said he died of a drug overdose and all this stuff, and how he was this, that, and the other. And there's a guy that was pretty obscure to the rest of the world. Like anyone who knew me knew him, and anyone that knew him knew he was a giant presence. But I remember that was the first time I'd ever encountered just like a completely blatant false like YouTube thing that was telling this crazy story. And I thought that was just somebody who was mad at him, and maybe it was, or whatever, or like had some bone to pick. But I started to realize like that's a thing. And now with the AI, they can just make it so much faster. They can just they can just like unleash them all day long. But yeah, it's like, don't believe anything you read on the internet. Honestly, that's the best way to deal with it, is you treat it all as false until otherwise proven not factual, or factual.
Yeah, exactly. Well, when I made a video warning people about it, because one of those accounts had over 100,000, subscribers, followers,
right.
whatever.
Which probably 98,000 of them are bots. Because have you looked at the comments? It's like people going, "Thank you, this is such a great article," and like they're all fake replies. And do you know about the dead internet theory? Have you heard about this?
No, I haven't.
Okay, it's a pretty fun rabbit hole to go down. And it was kind of hatched like about 10 years ago, maybe longer. But it was this theory that like pretty much everybody on the internet is not real, that it's all bots and it's all fake, and that there's a very small percentage that are actually people, and that we are when we're interacting with all these thousands and thousands of people on social media, that they are all bots for the most part, minus a small contingent, and that it's been that way since like the 90s. Like in the beginning, there were people on the internet, and now it's all bots and all fake content for the most part.
Wow. Well, it certainly seems it's getting that way, because I block bots left and right, you know.
Yeah.
And people, I'm sure you deal with the people pretending to be you and messaging, trying
all
to
the time
scam
saying
people.
that they want to, like, I need just a little money.
Yeah.
Do you want to hear something crazy that happened to a friend of mine? I'm not going to say who it is because I don't know if he wants me to say it, but he's a prominent musician, artist that I have known a long time. And man, he was playing golf one day, and this woman, he said he noticed this woman who looked like, was dressed like his fans, you know, and it wasn't the golf attire. And he was like, went over and talked to her, and he's like, who are you or something? And she goes, you're kidding, right? Like, this woman someone had taken an AI voice thing with him and had an entire relationship with her. And she had left her husband with a kid involved, sold the house and moved to Nashville because she was going to get married to him. And because he had posted several times, like, where he played golf, like that's where this thing targeted her to go. And like they met, and she sat there, he sat there with her, and you know, she was texting and he was showing like, this is not me. And he, you know, and then she was playing him all these messages, and he goes, man, it was my voice. Like, it was literally my voice. And it was talking to her, like constantly talking to her, like all day, and got her to break up her marriage and all this shit.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Pretty crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy the way the world is going, because it seems like, you know, in a few years you won't be able to differentiate what's real from what's not real, because it's getting that good.
Yeah, and it's pretty funny when, like, it's not funny, but like, you know, older people that I know will call us and they see all this AI stuff and they believe all of it, you know, the videos and stuff, and you have to kind of just be like, yeah, I don't know, and, you know, beware of the internet.
Well, this is the perfect opportunity to debunk something right now, because I've gotten this comment a lot whenever I've been sharing the new Waylon stuff of
the AI thing. Oh, it's just it's so amazing that like right when AI happens, we get a new Waylon record.
Yeah.
I mean, I would probably be the guy saying that, you know, because I'm cynical, but I definitely, that's why we took so many painstaking steps to ensure that, like, not of course it's not AI. Like, I don't even know how to use AI to make music right, and I don't think it would be able to do that. But also just as far as like everything involved with it, like making sure there's nothing AI related, or there's no steps, like even in the art or in anything that, because like I can't pollute the material. You know, because like the Waylon thing, man, what's so cool about it is like when we mixed it, I mixed it on a 1976 custom API in the Sunset Sound using only outboard gear. We didn't use any kind of digital processing. You know, I used Pro Tools to prepare the tracks in a sense where when they were opened, they were exactly as they were put. They were digitized, but they were exactly as they were on those tapes. So they were like 24 track sessions. Some the older stuff were 16 track, but most of it was all 24 track. And so, like, what I didn't want to do is do anything that would degrade that like the state of it. So yeah. I did, you know, some of them had like 5 vocal takes or 6 vocal takes. So I used Pro Tools to comp the way I would comp Charlie's records or Turnpike's, in the sense that out of those 5 vocals, I'll go through and make a vocal track of the best vocal, which was really cool to do on my dad, right? Just to hear all the different takes and go through it. Also, Mooney had a lot of takes, and I didn't have notes on which ones they liked, so I was able to like do a lot of comping. And there was like, on the Cowboy, there was like 5 Mooney takes.
Wow.
Steel, you know? So like, I used it for that. I used it in the sense that I would like make comps in it, and I would use it for automation. Back in the day when they would mix in the 70s, they'd had to have like 4 guys with their hands on the faders, like if they need something to turn up during the solo and go down. And then once you got into like the 80s, they had flying faders, like I'm sure you have seen a mixing board, and they have them where they move, like the things move automatically. So I used, instead of like, we have a flying fader system, but that's very archaic. So I used Pro Tools in the sense that when I'm making the mixes, it's saving my moves, right? But that's the only thing that I used it for. And then everything else was done with the actual gear from the 70s that they would have used and to do it. And, you know, I made like two choices, or actually three choices, I'll say, with it. One was I didn't fade anything. Like I let the songs like end and some of them fall apart with like Richie laughing and all this stuff, because I felt like here's all this stuff that we're revealing and letting people hear, like why not let them hear all of it, you know, like why fade it or something. And then the other kind of two choices were I beefed the low end, like the 50 to 100 hertz like frequency of the kick drum more than they would have back then, because modern records have a lot more low end, and I felt like it was important to kind of do that, and it would kind of bring it into a modern space. And then I also chose to use less reverb on his vocal than they did in the 70s, because I felt it was more modern, and I didn't want to cover his voice up any, because people who really want to hear him, I wanted to make sure it was loud, and I want to make sure it was not like soaking wet and sounded like it. Like we weren't trying to pretend these were 70s mixes. Like I wanted them to be, they're mixed in 2025, but they're recordings from the 70s.
Right. Well, obviously I get to hear it whenever I was in LA, and it's incredible. I've had so many people, when they found out that I went and listened to it, called me and asked me, you know, how it was and how it sounded. And that was a big question. Was it AI? I'm like, no, it sounded like straight late 70s, early 80s Waylon. It's really, really good. But how did it all come to be? You know, is this something that's kind of been years in the making, or is it something that you just kind of dug up?
I mean, it's years in the making, in the sense that it has been on my mind. You know, like when in 2008, like when that happened, like when my dad died, I was 22 years old, right? So like I'm living in LA. I got a band. I'm trying to figure my way out, you know, and so like to take something like this on at that age, I wasn't even thinking. But I know like Richie and well, this woman Nikki Mitchell, who ran my dad's office, along with Richie and his wife, and Carter and Barney and the guys from the band, they kind of took all those tapes of my dad's and all of Richie's tapes and whatever anybody had, and digitized it, right, and archived it. And you know, they were like, back then in 2008 when this happened, they were like this big, the drives. There was like 12 of them, you know. Yeah. It was so much data. And then in 2014, they had it retransferred from that to like a more modern drive that was like a RAID array, what they call a RAID array, which is like several drives that are all locked together to be like a giant size, so it could fit all this stuff. So around that time, I remember like back then to even open these drives, you had to have a RAID card in your computer, which at the time, like I had laptops and things, so there was just really no way to get into this unless I had like a really nice system. But I remember I had a PC, and I somehow got into it in 2014, and I was working on that album of mine, the Countach thing that I did for Giorgio Moroder, and I was working on that. And if you've heard that album, it starts with a song called Loading, and it starts with like my dad's, it's Don't You Think This Outlaw bit, and then it turns into another song, but like some of the instruments stay in from Outlaw bit, like Richie's drumming. And that was because that was the first time I opened it. And the first thing I found, I opened it and I saw there's so much in there, and it's all unlabeled. Like there were just numbers. There was some stuff tucked away in there that I found later that had some labels, but for the most part, all this stuff was unmarked or unlabeled. So around 2014, when I opened it up, the first file I found, and it was Don't You Think This Outlaw bit. And there was like, the coolest thing is if you listen to my version or my album in the beginning, there's like this wah-wah guitar that is Tony Joe White, I'm 100% sure. And it was not in the album. Like it was muted. They didn't use it, but it's on the song. So I put it in there, and you can hear it go, wow, and this thing happened. So that was when I knew what was in there, and I know I'd messed with it. But then after that, like almost immediately after that, I lost the ability to get back into them again. I didn't have a functioning RAID card or something. I don't remember, but I was like thinking about them a lot. And then when the pandemic happened, I told my wife Misty, I said, like, I think this is the time I need to get into these things. You know, we're gonna be home, and I was really delighted. Honestly, I hate to say that, but I was in this place where I was so burnt out from the road, and I didn't want to do it anymore, and I wanted to produce, and then the pandemic happened, and it made me go home, and I was like, oh, this is the greatest break I've ever had. I was the only person that was like happy, unfortunately. Sorry, but don't mean to say something bad, but I'm just saying, you know, like I needed the break, and so. June 2020 rolls around, and I'm going into the studio, Sunset Sound 3, the room that I'm in now. By this point, I was in love with this room, and I was renting it all the time. And they opened it back up for us. You know, it was closed for the pandemic, and they were always wonderful to me there. And they let us in, let us be the first people to record in there. And so I'm doing this Yellow Wolf. We're having the time of our lives doing it. It's a really crazy time. And so the assistant engineer that was working at Sunset is a guy named Nate Hazley, who I think you might have met at the party. He's the guy who helped me. He mixed Songbird with me, and he really taught me how to use that room by myself and mix everything. Great guy. At the time, he was working at Sunset, and I asked him, I was like, hey, man, I have all this shit of my dad's. Like, I actually asked him to go through it. Like, I was like, would you, because I didn't have a home studio capable to really do it, and I knew he had access to the studio, so I was kind of asking him to like help me somehow, but I never really pulled the trigger on it, and it was just, and at that same time I was kind of asking him, do you think they'd let me move into this room full time, you know? And it didn't really happen, but that's when it kind of, the precursor for it started, and it was always in the back of my mind, but I was also very busy all the time. And then once I rented that room, and I was in there for about 3 months, and I had a project like totally bail on me like a week before, and it was supposed to be a whole month, this album. And so all of a sudden I'm out of work for the month, and so I just said to Nate, I said, let's do it. Let's just go for it, you know? And at first I tried to get in, and the files were fucking corrupted. And he was having a heart attack, and I knew there was another copy of it elsewhere, so if I had to, I could get to it, but I had to bring the drives in. It was like, took like 2 or 3 days for us to actually finally get into them. And then when we did, and it was so much, like we split it up into two, like I brought my home Pro Tools rig into the other room of the studio, and we sat in 2 rooms and just went through everything and sorted it for about a week or 2. And that's when we kind of looked at and that was basically like us playing a session. And like at first we started trying to label everything, like because nothing was labeled, right? So you got 24 tracks, like one of them's a kick drum, one of them's a snare drum, one of them's a bass, one of them's a guitar. You had to listen to that and figure out what they were, and then write down. And then after a while I was like, you know what, we need to stop messing with the tracks, because this is gonna take us a year. I was like, let's just identify what songs they are, and then we'll come back and label them when we want to go back to it, you know? So we were just kind of sitting there, and it would hit play, and I'd be just typing lyrics into Google as they came down, so I could try and figure out what the song was as quick as possible, you know, and then we'd like label it and move through it. And of course, there were like several where like, what is this song? Like the Cowboy, like I had no context for that song. And I was like, man, you know, what's funny about the Cowboy is like, I think they wrote it together. I don't, because I have no proof of that, and I don't want to take anything away from Johnny Rodriguez, but like, I didn't even know Johnny Rodriguez was any part of it, like for a very long time. Like when I went into them and I found that song, there was like 3 or 4 different sessions. There was one before Ralph Mooney, and then there was one with Ralph Mooney, and there's my dad had a discography book written by this guy John Smith many years ago, and in there is some documentation from sessions, from the reels that my dad had in his studio, I guess. But it's not full, like Songbird is nowhere in there, the song, but the Cowboy is in there like 3 or 4 times, and the title keeps changing. So at first it was called West Texas Town, Small Texas Town, then it was the Cowboy, then it was the Cowboy, Small Texas Town, right? And then the Cowboy, West Texas. It was like it just from session to session, it kept changing, and there was like notes about how they kept changing the title. So I was like, man, this had to have been being written in this process. And, you know, the law will allow line is kind of a tell to me, because my dad like later put that in the Dukes of Hazzard, but you know, that seems as if a thing that he would write. And then Johnny Rodriguez cuts it and puts it out a year and a half later with another verse that doesn't sound anything like the other verses, right? And it's about the cowboy being old. And so I think that was something they were working on together, and then my dad didn't release it. It was during the I've Always Been Crazy sessions, and Johnny cut it later. But I have no idea, and we just gave it to Johnny because like I had proof that it was Johnny. You know? And in the notes for Johnny's record, I believe it says it's written by him, but I don't have a copy of that. It's only on YouTube. There's just the Cowboys, only the Rodriguez version. So it's kind of a mystery, but that's fine to me. Like I don't think you have to know everything. You know, we did a lot of due diligence with this stuff in trying to figure out what stuff was and where it came from and who wrote it when there were times, and it was hard. But once we did, you know, it started to take some shape, and the kind of story started to be told of like why this stuff wasn't released. You know, that's like what the big thing everyone asked me, like, well, why didn't he release it if it was, you know, no matter how good it is, someone's going to say like, well, he didn't want it to be out, it shouldn't be out. Somebody says some shit like that, which I get that. And man, I found 100 songs that nobody's heard, and I'm choosing to release about like 30 something of them because I wanted it to be the greatest of the great stuff. I didn't want to like just put something out there that might have been like half cooked, you know, for any reason. And so, you know, throughout that process, like it all kind of unveiled itself a bit, you know?
Yeah. Well, we're all so glad that you put in that work and that effort and that time. I know it was a lot to dig through that.
Yeah, but it was so fun. It was like living in, you know, the Da Vinci Code or something. Like every time you'd find another, like I'd be like, I found Fleetwood Mac's Songbird today. Like, you know, that was like crazy. It was actually like the fifth thing I opened. And when I hit that, I was like, wow. I was like, I can't believe this wasn't released. And I don't know, you know, it's funny. I don't know who played piano on that. And Carter, I mean, Barney Robertson, who played on everything, says it wasn't him. And it sounds like Christy McVie. I don't think it's her, but I have no idea who played piano on that. Like, I can't find that piece of information. Now, one way I think I could, and I thought about it, and I attempted to try and go down this road. I'm going to say everything nice I can possibly say about the Union. But I think there is data at the Union that I could go and find exactly who the sessions and stuff are, but I'm gonna like not call, that's too much work. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like to me, like it's all there. We knew everything with everything, minus the thing here or there. You know, we figured everything out. But part of that was that. You know, part of it was like understanding. Like there's some shit on the second one that is so wild that you go like, what in the world is this? You know, and like that, like having to reverse engineer these moments that were cool. Like, cause like a Songbird, like they each have a flavor. I'm not going to give anything away, but I will say that I was thinking about all three of them while I'm working on them. Right. So like the Songbird was meticulously planned to be like just exactly what it is, you know, and there's a lot of covers. Like it's basically all covers of other people. I mean, Isaac Peyton Sweat is a guy who wrote this song, I Hate to Go Searching Them Bars Again. And like that song, his version is on the internet. I had never heard of this guy. I had never heard of this song, but it's like a classic Waylon jam on this thing, you know. So there's, when I say covers, it's not just like Fleetwood Mac and like, you know, it's just him. Like he would just find, he was a songbird. That's why this record is called that. Because he would find songs that he loved by other people, whether it be a big star or someone he just met and he would cut them. He would just cut them all, you know, and he would like, if he liked your song, he was going to try it, and it was probably going to end up on a record, you know, and like that was a cool thing. And in terms of the three records, like that was the point of this one, was to kind of show, you know, how he was about how how much he just loved music and how much he loves cutting songs and recording this and singing these songs, you know? And so, I mean, I don't know where I was going with that, but at the end of the day, like the, you know, there's different moments and trying to like reverse engineer and understand those moments and get them was at times challenging, but it was really the fun part too, you know?
Yeah. Well, you talked about the second album in LA. After we'd listened to the first album, I was talking to Struggle, and Struggle said, "Man, if you like that one, the second and third one are really good." So
yeah, it's so funny. I mean, he heard some of the stuff off number 2. Number 3 is kind of a different thing, but that'll unveil itself. But 1 and 2 in a way are like this. They're kind of a thing, and he has definitely heard a lot of the second one, and you know, gets excited about it. I mean, you know, me and him are just like big babies. So like when I there was one time he called me and I played it for him on the phone. He's like fucking crying his eyes out on the phone, you know, and all that, and I'm crying too, you know, like I'm doing right now. But like, you know, it struggles like. I couldn't wait to share it with him. You know, I haven't gotten to play it all for Way because he hasn't been to LA and all that. But
yeah,
I'm excited for him to hear it.
Yeah. Well, we've got about 30 minutes left, so we have to talk about your wonderful mom, Jessi Colter, who, in my opinion, absolutely should be in that building downtown, down there, the Country Music Hall of Fame.
Oh, I know. Hey, we're working on it, man. I'm working on pushing that because I just really I feel like she should be in it. You know, she, and like I'm Jessi Colter, just turned like 50 years old. You know, it's like this year actually, and so. You know, she's got a hell of a career, and she kind of just is cool, chilling, and not even bringing it up. You know, and it's like it's pretty incredible. But yeah, real love of music. You know, and she's been a great mom, so I'm very lucky.
One of the most beautiful voices to ever grace country music, honestly. And yeah, she was part of the first million copy selling album in country music. One of the Outlaws, so I think she absolutely deserves a spot in the Hall of Fame. So
yeah, I think so too. We'll see. You know, they're sometimes they're slow, but they usually do the right thing all the time. You know, we got Tanya in, and that was a long time deserved. You know, but I'm not gonna say we got her in. We didn't get her in, but as a collective, as fans of Tanya's, we all got her in.
Yeah.
But you know, Tanya's the best and deserved it, and that was a great year. Hank Jr. got in it. You know, it's like everybody's getting their moment.
Yeah. Well, how's your mom doing?
She's good, man. She's doing great. She got married a couple years back to a wonderful guy named Arlen, and she's living a cowboy lifestyle, man. They're going up there like Wyoming part of the time, Arizona part of the time, horses and cabins and all this crap that I don't do.
Well, that's great. We're glad to hear she's doing good. I do want to say, I wish I could remember exactly what year it was. I was a teenager the first time I saw you. It was in Kinder, Louisiana at a Coshada.
How old are you?
I'm 31.
31.
32. No, I'm 32.
I'm 14 years older than you. That's so wild.
I was you were opening, and I can't remember if it was, you might remember. I want to say it was Leonard Skinner.
Yeah, we did a tour with Skinner and Three Doors Down. That was like our first tour was Toby Keith, and we were the opener for the Leanne Womack, which love her. Like she became like one of my dearest friends at that point. But then the next thing we did was this Skinner, Three Doors Down, and Us tour, and I think that would have probably been what that was.
Yeah, probably so.
Because Ricky Matlock used to come out on stage with us, and we would do Train from his band Blackfoot. I don't know if that would be an indicator if it was one of those tour things, because he would come out and do it. We played about 20 minutes in the beginning of the whole thing, or 30 minutes or something.
The whole concert itself is kind of a blur to me because it was one of the wildest crowds in a concert that I've been to, because it was like all these, rednecks with wearing flags for capes, and they was screaming Skinner and Shooter, it was, and I was probably 15, it was pretty crazy for me. It was one of the it wasn't one of the first concerts I went to, but pretty early, you know. It was incredible though. But at that time, It Ain't Easy, and still to this day, if I'm being honest, one of my favorite songs ever.
Oh, thanks, man. You know what's so funny is that was written at the very last minute, and we had, we were doing Electric Rodeo. Well, see, we did put the Outlaw Country. Like, I had just met Dave Cobb. He had just moved to LA. He was just starting out as a producer. I mean, he had done some things, but he had just left his band. He was a guitar player in a band called the Tender Idols. And then he was living in Atlanta, producing in Atlanta. And he moved moved to LA. And that's when I met him. And he lived there for years. And we did 8 records together, or 7 or 8 records. But, so when we did the first album, like, we started working on Electric Rodeo before we actually had a record deal for the first one, right? We were already kind of on to the next thing. Like, me and Leroy and Ted and Brian in the band had been like wanting to continue. Like, I guess we kind of were continuing to evolve what we thought was our sound from the first record with Electric Rodeo. Mm-hmm. And so when we did the album, it was the Living Proof, the Hank Jr. song, was the last song on the album. And at the very last minute, I wrote It Ain't Easy, and we cut it and then replaced it with that, you know, on the album. And I appreciate you saying that, man. I like that song too. Back, you know, it was a moment for me and reconciling with, you know, my life and see. What I was getting at there is we already had a deal now. By the time that I'm cutting this song, right, I had a lot of shit had happened because that first record came out and we had the 4th of July and it did well, right?
Yeah.
The second single or I should say the first single from Electric Rodeo that we sent to radio was Aviators, and they were furious. Like, they literally said, we're not only are we not going to play this, but we're never playing you again after you sent us that. And so It Ain't Easy was how I felt after that. And it changed the end of that record, you know?
Wow.
So it was weird.
Yeah. It's such an incredible song, an incredible album altogether. And I've always been a big fan of your music. You also had another one of my favorites, Outlaw You.
Oh yeah, it's always like it's like outrage or something, like the ones that people like, or the songs where I'm like fuck you songs.
Yeah, you know? Yeah. Well,
It Ain't Easy is a fuck you song, but
yeah,
I know it doesn't sound like it. It kind of is.
Well, I think we kind of share the same sentiment. You're putting forth in Outlaw You, and still to this day, you know, that everything you say in there is still happening.
Yeah, I know, man. It's kind of funny. It's like that was like, I'll tell you, that was kind of like the same thing as a Cocaine Bear for me, because when all of these guys were coming out at that time and kind of doing this like outlaw-ish thing, and I just want to remind everyone, like, because there's a lot of people who are new to country music. At the time that I released that, which was around 2011, country music was awful. Like the state of country music was awful, and it had been awful for a very long time.
Yeah.
So when we did that song, you know, I was just wanting to do like a history lesson to explain to people like why they were called, like what the outlaw thing was, why were they weren't. It wasn't because they were fucking bringing guns around or whatever. It was because my dad won this battle that was a big deal, and so it was kind of like telling that story, you know. But there's still some of that going on. You know what's funny about that video is that Struggle and Jelly Roll are in that video. Like when I'm walking down the street, like they're like I walk past them and they're like, hey, and like, yeah, so Jelly Roll's in that video.
I was just watching that video this morning and I didn't even notice it whenever I was watching it.
Well, they were both like, it was a long time ago. I mean, this was before, I think it was before the second time Struggle went back to prison. Like, you know what? Yeah. Anyway, I won't get off on any of that, but
yeah. Well, you still have an incredible recording career. You've done some really cool things, you know, cool collaborations with different people, from George Jones to Stephen King. And then you get into producing. How did you kind of fall in love with that? Because you're one of the most prolific producers I know.
Well, thanks. It's been a little nuts lately. You can ask my wife like how much I work, and it's like, a little bit of an issue. But no, man, I wanted to do that for a long time. I knew that it's weird when I look back in my life, like I realized I was setting myself up for that. Like I didn't realize it then. Like I thought, but as a kid, I had this studio I told you about that my dad helped me build,
Right.
and I really, my Nine Inch Nails is why I started playing music, because when I was 15, when the Downward Spiral came out, I heard them for the first time in 8th grade, but when I was in 9th grade, that Downward Spiral album came out, and I had never heard anything like that. And I was a computer nerd. I loved rock and roll. I was an MTV kid, and that was so, I had never heard anything like that. I'd never heard someone like use sounds in a way to like make music like scary and aggressive, and it was cinematic on a whole other level I'd ever heard, so that really kind of kicked me into wanting to be a musician. And I think like in a weird way, I think like I was always kind of like, I was just using myself as the artist in a way, because like I never really loved selling myself. Like I've never been good at being like, hey, check out my album. Because also my whole life, like I felt like I had a real fortunate life, so like to roll out and like I was in music to do something great and do something interesting and do something cool. But like I knew like the idea of going and asking people to pay their money for my work felt always a little strange to me. I mean, I always loved touring. I don't want to say like I didn't like being an artist, because I did.
Right.
But like, and I had a wonderful time with the band over the years and everything we did. I just, there was something about it that was tough. Like when I would go on the road, I would do nothing. I wouldn't write a song, maybe every once in a while, but otherwise, because the day is filled with me being pensive and anxious about the show until the show happens, and then after the show, I just want to party because it's done. So I would kind of have this contentious relationship where I would come home and I would go, and I couldn't wait to get in with Dave, right? Dave was the greatest producer for me because we were like best friends. We were like little kids. We liked the same music growing up. And I would tell him like, I would send him songs I was working on, and he'd get excited. And like, I remember I was on a plane when I wrote "Fuck You, I'm Famous." So it ended up being on Black Ribbons. And like, I sent it to him, and we just sat on the phone and like talked about this fucking ridiculous song for like ever. But he thought it was such a funny idea. And either way, like, he was just he's the only producer I've ever worked with, besides like maybe a little one-off here or there for something, So I had a really fortunate experience working with producers, having worked with Dave, because he was just somebody who had just so much joy and curiosity about music and exploration, and wanting to do stuff like our favorite albums and like our favorite people, like getting to make Black Ribbons was incredible for us, because he and I both loved Nine Inch Nails, loved Marilyn Manson, loved all that shit growing up. And we'd never gotten to like tickle that funny bone musically together. And we got to spend a year and a half like concocting this like piece, And so like, what I'm getting at with all of this is like, when I'd be on the road, I wouldn't be productive. And I would come home and I couldn't wait to get back in with Dave, because we'd just be like, you have to create something new. Like that's the thing that's exciting to me so much. Sorry, man, my eyes are watering. I'm not crying from the fucking thing. It's like I get allergies, but
you're fine. I know how it is.
I was crying earlier talking about my dad, but I'm not crying talking about Black Ribbons. But so anyway, I just felt like it was hard for me to do that. I felt like I wasn't being like, I was kind of felt like I was being wasted. Like sometimes I just didn't feel like I was getting to really fulfill the creative thing. I mean, it's like, for me, I looked at it like this, like I wrote this song. I'm so excited about the song. And now I have to go sing it on the road every single day for the next like 10 years until I hate it. You know what I mean? And like it was kind of like you spend this time creating something and then you just got to go out there and just keep like playing it and hope you don't mess up the words every day. Like it just became kind of like a little bit of a, I don't know, a chore to me sometimes, like, because it just wasn't what made me happy as much. It was in the studio part. So after like Dave moved to Nashville, I started producing my own records, and because he wasn't here or he wasn't in LA, and and he was doing awesome. That's when he started with Jason and Sturgill and all that stuff.
Right.
So I started doing my own stuff, and I really wanted to do Hellbound Glory because that was like was my favorite band and still one of my favorite bands. And I really wanted, and I felt like I was starting to feel like, hey, I have learned from Dave and other things how to make records, and all of these artists that are out there have no access to any of that. So I felt like if I start working with them, I can start like, because one big thing, like there was a huge underground scene in country music in 2010 or 11 that nobody knew about. It was like the beginning of, it was like everything from like the Muddy Roots thing, like to like, there was this label Farmageddon at the time, bands like Slim Cessna's Auto Club and kind of like this, Scott H. Byram and like the scene that was born out of Hank 3, like that was a big contingency because there was just a lot of people that were punk rockers that now are playing roots music. It was because they are metal kids, So there was like this huge underground scene, and all of those records were being made at home, and they sounded cool, but they didn't sound great. Like I'm not saying they weren't good, because I mean, like the 357 String Band is an amazing band, and I love those records. But I know like it was just DIY city, that whole scene, So I figured like if I could figure out a way to help make some records that sound good on all these artists that I liked. Not saying like I didn't. It was really Hellbound Glory. Like I want to start there, and the other contingent or part of it was when I played Steamboat, that thing they do in Colorado. That's like the red dirt thing. Like it's like all those artists. So it was like Jason Boland, Cross Canadian Ragweed, Charlie Robinson, all that stuff. They do this thing out in Colorado, and they all come out there and converge, and there's like this big festival, right? And we opened up for Charlie Robinson there, and Jason Boland was my buddy from a long time ago, but I had not seen him in a long time, and like he had gotten sober and lost all this weight, and he kind of emerged from the shadows and was like, hey, have you ever thought about producing somebody else? And I was like, he was the first person to ask me, kind of, and we went and did this Dark and Dirty Mile thing together. So that was kind of, that's the beginning right in there. I started doing my own, and I did those guys. And then just as time went on, I met this manager, John Hensley, and he was like, let's start a label. Like he wanted us to start our Third Man Records, which we did, and started doing all this vinyls and, talking trash on Third Man, trying to be, doing all, and he was like, you're going to be a really good producer. He said that to me, he knew that, that was a big role. So for me, so that's kind of how it all started. And then as time went on, it was really Brandy who gave me the shot that shot me across the bow, bow or whatever.
Yeah. And you produced some incredible stuff. I've really been enjoying the stuff you did on Charlie Crockett.
Man, I love Charlie.
I didn't know until I went to LA that he was co-producing the new Waylon stuff.
He's a co-executive producer on it, which meaning like the reason being for that is that during the process, well, Charlie and I became really close after Lonesome Drifter, and during that time, he was when I was starting to mix the Waylon record, I was sending him stuff. He was kind of the guy I was talking to throughout the whole process, and it'd be weird. Like there's a song on there called Brand New Tennessee Waltz, and I was like mixing and like just play like half of a verse maybe. I sent it to him like a voice note, and he was like, Brand New Tennessee Waltz by Jesse Winchester. And I was like, how the fuck did you know that? And he's like, I cut that. And he cut it during $10 Cowboy, but didn't make the album. So there's all these like weird little parallels with his career that were happening at the same time as this Waylon thing. And I really felt like he was in sync with my dad's legacy in a weird way during that period of time. Mm-hmm. And so we were talking all the time, you know, and then when I didn't know what to do label wise, he was kind of my guide there a little bit. And we came to the conclusion I was going to do the 30 Tigers thing, which worked with Sony since they claimed to own all the stuff that we had. So we could kind of keep them off our ass a little bit. And so, you know, he just, from that all the way to the billboards and shit, like he has been the guy who's been who's leading the way for me. Like even with Island, I've been alongside him while he was searching for a label and got on a label and has been dealing with the label. And he and I have talked a lot. And like he chose this company 10K Advertising, and they did this great job. And it's he introduced me to them, and this guy Chris, who works there, was great and was so far. He's like, I already pre-ordered Songbird, like, and all, you know, and I knew they were like into it, and it was perfect. So I said, I just want to follow Charlie, like wherever you're putting up his billboards, put up the Waylon one after his, you know. So that all kind of boiled down to him. So very much deservedly, he's a co-executive producer on Songbird.
Yeah, I love Charlie. I've been following him for quite some time. He does cut a lot of those old obscure songs that he pulls out of who knows where.
yeah, that's the thing, man. He's a listener, and he's an interpreter, and he's a fan of artists, you know, the first and foremost. But Charlie's like a complex character, and it's so funny because like I don't want to get into all the bullshit that's like on the internet all the time, but when I see people accusing him of being not real, and I'm sitting here with still got blood in my hair and my teeth from $1 a Day from what we went through making that record, which was an incredible experience. And I just like, it's so laughable to me when someone says that like he's faking this and it's not the real deal, because what I experienced was like the creative highlight of my whole life, you know, making $1 a Day was. Because like the first record, we only had 9 days. We had 9 or 10 days, and he brought 9 musicians in the studio at the same time, and we had to do that record in a very small amount of time. But with $1 a Day, and see, this is the other thing, when people are like, I just wish he'd slow down. It's like, if they realize that $1 a Day took us a year to make, it's not like he's rushing through these records. Like Lonesome Drifter went by in 2 weeks, because that's how it usually is with artists that I work with. You know, they come in for like 2 weeks and we carve something out and then we mix it, you know. And but with $1 a Day, he came in with like 2 or 3 musicians at a time over several months, and we would get in there and cut like cut 5-6 songs in 7 days, and then like he'd come back another couple months later, and he'd have all this other material, and then he'd come back another couple months later, you know. So with $1 a Day, we got to really, really craft that album, and all the way down to the instrumental piece in the center of it and everything, you know. We had a vision for it. We had a vision for the trilogy, which is hilarious because it wasn't initially a trilogy, but it became one. And now it's like, now that like we're so deep into what's going to be the third one, mentally, we're about to just kind of start going in and working on it. But yeah, I love working with Charlie. I'm very proud of those records, especially $1 a Day, because of just what I felt like we really cracked something together on that one.
Yeah, I've only been around Charlie. Well, I've been around him a couple of times there in L.A., and then I was with him briefly there at the Johnny Rodriguez Memorial deal. But cool guy. I mean, just fun to hang out with. I hung out with him a good bit there in L.A. at the the Rainbow Room, and
oh yeah, the Rainbow. Yeah,
and had a good time, and he's just he is a real dude. I don't know what all this is about being real and not real, but
well, I mean, look, here's what it is that he's like a very larger than life personality. He, you know, every time he comes to the studio, he is renting a 60s Cadillac convertible and pulling up in his cowboy hat and his whole thing. You know what I mean? Like every moment of every day, he is Charlie Crockett. But he's like a fucking delightful guy, and he's hilarious, and he's all smiles. He's very kind. Like it. Yeah, he's a delightful guy.
Yeah. Well, we're getting in that time. We're gonna have to start wrapping it up pretty soon.
Yeah, man.
But I want to say thank you, for everything you've done for country music altogether.
Oh, thanks,
and
man.
these new albums that are coming out, the work you're putting into that. I know I'm excited. What I'm really excited for is I want to see in the 2020s Waylon Jennings charting.
Yeah, I know, man. Taylor Swift announced, her album on the day that Songbird's coming out, and I was like, I know we'll never get a number one, but let's try for number two. But who knows? Even if it just on the country charts, like, cool with me. You know what I mean? Like, it's not the thing that matters at all, but it's like it is cool with me.
Well, it's such a good album. I mean, I could see it going. I didn't know that about Taylor, so I don't really follow.
Yeah, I just know because like I knew that date. I'm working towards this date for months, and then she's like, "Mine's coming out that day," and I was like, "Oh, great, yeah."
But I foresee it going. I hope all three of them chart. That would just be so fulfilling to see, in this day and age, Waylon Jennings being on the charts. It's going to be incredible.
Well, let's do it together.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm here to help y'all in any way I can, anytime.
No, you're sweet, man. I mean, I just want to get this thing to the fans. Really, that was the thing when I saw it and when I got into it. After I got past my own personal little journey with it, like I was like, there are people that are like 80 years old that were there in the beginning. And I was like, I want those people to hear this the most. Like I wanted to figure out as many ways to market to get to those people more than like the internet side, because like those people are going to find it. But it was kind of like there's some old cowboys and cowgirls that need to hear this like stat,
Yeah. I don't know if you saw this. I just thought about it, which is funny because I actually ended up, telling you guys about the leak. And it gets wiped away, but a year ago, it was pretty shortly after y'all announced that New Waylon was coming. It was on April Fool's, and I always like to do something silly on April Fool's.
Oh, I know what you're talking. Your Rickroll thing. That was so funny. Struggle was actually talking about that last night because he didn't know you, and he saw that, and he's like getting fucking mad like before it happened, and then it played, and I don't even know if he. What knows what Rickroll was, really, or anything. I mean, maybe I'd had a couple people do that to me, so I kind of knew. But yeah, it's funny. We were talking about that. That was hilarious.
Yeah, so we got it's leaked. I'm going to show it to y'all. Then it Rickrolled. That was it got quite a lot of people.
Yeah, it did. I know, and people were trying to tell me like without listening to it, that they thought. There were so many people that didn't watch it and just thought you did it. You know? It was like, that was pretty funny.
Yeah, I would never do that. I know how much work and time goes into making a record and stuff. I just think, like when it was sent to me, I'm sure that some people hoped that I would put it out. Yeah. But I know how much time and how personal it is to people like you that just scummy to me, to do that for views.
Yeah, I know. But yeah. At the end of the day, it's like if it leaked, it leaked. But I'm glad that it didn't. We made it this far. At the thing on Thursday, we're not taking phones this time. So if somebody chooses to leak it, they're gonna leak it. But we're close enough.
Yeah, we're close now.
I think it's fine.
Close now. Well, thank you for inviting me to that again.
Of course,
I'm
man.
excited to listen to it again. I'm gonna bring my wife out there this time and let you meet her. But it's gonna be a good time. But again, thank you for coming out here and sharing stories on your dad and your mom and your incredible career and everything we have going, this new album. We're so excited, coming out October the 3rd.
October the 3rd.
It's going to be great. Do we know when the other two are going to be coming out?
You don't. I think I do. I think I know. I mean, I have a plan.
Yeah.
I have a plan that is kind of spread out. So we'll see. But I want everything to move smoothly. I don't know how. I don't know how I'm going to release the second one or what fashion. So we'll see.
Yeah.
But I do have a plan in my mind. But things could change based on other factors. So we'll see. But I do. You're not going to have to wait like another 10 years or something.
Yeah.
It'll be pretty smooth, I think.
Well, Shooter, this has been such a pleasure, and thanks again. And we'll have to do it again sometime. I'm
Anytime, man.
Appreciate.
You're a good guy, and you're very good at this, so I have a really good time doing it.
Well, thank you for that, and I appreciate you and your friendship going forward, and all the new music, and just excited to see what you do next.
Yeah. Well, thank you, buddy. I appreciate that.
All right, we'll see y'all.